What is up? Tobacco. Sorry I started like that, but you guys know the tobacco plant. It's a plant that originated from North and South America. The Native Americans believed that this plant was a drug. The first people that used tobacco were the southern states of Mexico, and they were the starters. They had their special type of pipes, and they would smoke tobacco out of them. It's good to know that the natives have been smoking tobacco since 12,000 years ago. In the 15th centuries, the Europeans came to America, and they noticed that these natives are smoking something, and they were wondering what it was. I don't know if they liked it, but they liked it enough to bring it back to Europe and started selling to the population. If you want to talk about what tobacco did in the world, there's a lot of stories. Tobacco built cities, created empires, created different billionaires, and it also killed a lot of people. Back in the day, most of the people that died because of tobacco were the slaves, and they were the ones working on the tobacco fields. But nowadays, it kills the people that use it the most. The Native Americans really believed in the tobacco, so you could say it was kind of in their religion to use it. In 1492, when Christopher Columbus entered America, he got to know tobacco because he noticed a lot of natives using it. They told him that this is a type of painkiller and using it is good for you. Christopher Columbus didn't really pay attention to tobacco because he never brought it back for himself or tried to sell it. In the year 1606, King James, King of England, sailed to America. He first lands in Virginia. Where these guys landed, they started to make a town, and they put James's name on it, Jamestown. You could say Jamestown was the first town in America. But this was Virginia, and there was no tobacco here. But if you went south, you would get to places that tobacco exists. This is what John Rolfe did, and he went from Virginia to Mexico, found tobacco, got to know it, and he brought it to Jamestown. And obviously, he got the seeds. Since the Spanish Empire was huge, and they were the first that had dibs on the seeds, they basically had a monopoly. But John Rolfe broke that monopoly because he got the seeds. The Spanish Empire was very powerful back then because before anyone else, they got to see everywhere. When they noticed that they could make money off of tobacco, they set a rule that if any Spanish person sells seeds to a non-Spanish person, they're punished by execution. Either way, the British started planting tobacco. A few years passed. In the year 1690, the British were stuck because a tobacco farm needs a lot of work. From plowing to collecting to watering. They couldn't do it, but they had an idea. They said, we'll go to Africa and bring slaves. In the year 1619, the British brought the first African slaves to America. When the British noticed how much money they can make off of this and how they can make everybody addicted, they went to Africa and kept on bringing African slaves. Tobacco turned into money because they were everywhere and it was sold as a good drug. Tobacco was so well known that it was literally turned into currency. A lot of years passed and most of the world was using tobacco. From America to Europe, Ottoman Empire, Persian Empire, Indians, and Chinese. And that's until 1826, some scientists found out that the nicotine inside the tobacco is poison for humans. This is written in history that in this date they found out what this tobacco and nicotine does. But unfortunately, nobody cared. Next to growing tobacco, there was tobacco companies. They would make papers so you could roll the tobacco up and smoke it like a cigarette, or smoke it out of a pipe. But in the year 1881, James Bonsack created the first cigarette rolling machine. Before this, the people that would roll up cigarettes were known as the higher class, but the one that smoked out of a pipe was not known like that. And that's why when this machine started making paper cigarettes, it got cheap, so a lot of more people could afford it. And they even got people that didn't smoke before. Let me tell a different story here. When in the 16th century tobacco got to India, the Mughal Empire was at chart, and Akbar was the king of India. Akbar did not like the pipe, so that is why people got to work for him and created the hookah so he can smoke the tobacco. This story exists, but the actual story is that Ahli Shirazi, a Persian poet, wrote about the hookah in the year 1535. He wrote that King Tahmasp, king of Persia, would smoke hookah. This date is before King Akbar, and a lot of people say hookah originated from Persia. But let's get back to the cigarette rolling machine that caused everybody to start smoking cigarettes. And they wanted everybody to start doing it as well. It's good to know that in World War I and World War II, the soldiers had their fair share of cigarettes, even if they did not smoke. They would get bored and probably start smoking as well. They were all young, and when the war ended, most of them were still addicted to cigarettes, and it started spreading like wildfire. You guys know the Nazis. In most of our clips, we talk about how organized they were, and they wrote everything and published it. In the 1930s, German scientists noticed that cigarettes lead to cancer, especially lung cancer. Another cool thing is that the Nazis would not give their soldiers cigarettes, and at that time, smoking indoors was illegal, and this was very modern for the 1930s. It's good to know that when smoking indoors became illegal in the United States, it was in the year 1997, basically 67 years after the Nazis put that in order. Either way, the cigarette companies had so much power and money that they would not let these people slow them down. There was always advertisements about these products as well. TV, magazine, newspaper, radio, all of them had cigarette ads. Nobody had the power to stop it either. And that's until 1971 and made cigarette advertisements illegal. In the year 1971, cigarette ads was illegal in the US, but to this day, a lot of different places in the world still allow cigarette advertisement. A lot of people say that cigarettes is the worst addiction in the world. It is true because it kills 5 million people every year. No war kills this many people per year. Tobacco is not easy to smoke like cigarette, and to make it easier to smoke a cigarette and make you feel good, they add a lot of chemicals to it, and 43 of those chemicals are cancer causing. But this doesn't mean that hookah, pipe, or any other way is good. Tobacco is poison. It's good to know that the first country that made cigarettes illegal is Bhutan, and that was back in 2004. Cigarettes are only sold to people that used to smoke, and they have a card, so they can go to the pharmacy and get cigarettes, but at a very high cost. In the year 2016, 12 years after Bhutan, Turkmenistan made cigarettes illegal. And that's old smokers and new smokers. This is good for the young people to not go towards this. But what do you guys think about tobacco? Is making it illegal good? Do you think what these two countries did was good to stop smoking? Please answer this question, and I have an interesting story for you guys. A story about cigarette advertisement. Do you know this guy? Eric Lawson. He was also called Marlboro Man because you would see his pictures everywhere in advertisement, and he was always lighting a Marlboro. He wasn't much of a smoker, but for pictures and videos he would do it. But because of that, it made him addicted. In the year 2014, he died from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So basically, he could not breathe anymore and he suffocated.